Well, I'm afraid I fibbed.
Again?
Again.
This is becoming a habit.
It is. Anyway, last week I said when we were out at the Welby Roundhouse that there was nothing left of the railroad that Kennecott used to have. As it turns out, it's all still there.
Wow.
We decided to go look and see because we said that when it was like, well, I don't know that for a fact. It's just everything else out there's gone. So I assume.
No more tracks.
Never assume.
That's right.
And so we went out there and started looking. The whole railroad is still there.
Yeah.
So we're returning to the scene of the screwing around, and this time we're taking you guys with us to show you that the entire railroad is still there. Abandoned. Cool. They haven't used it since 1995, but it's all still there. So check this out, the old Kennecott Railroad. Well, we're going to start at the Magna end of the whole thing. We'd start at the Garfield end, but Garfield's gone.
That's right. A lot of those towns are gone.
A lot of those towns. Lark
is gone. Where my mom lived, yes.
Copperfield gone. Bingham Canyon gone. Highland Boy gone. And not just gone, buried.
Buried completely.
3,000 feet of dirt stacked up on top of these places.
It's
just gone.
Gone.
But Garfield, actually the town site's still there, but they moved it because it was in the way of the smelter and the concentrator and all these things. And so they sold off all of the houses and just moved them to Magna. This I know because my grandmother lived in one of these houses that had started off in Garfield and got moved over to Magna, the old company housing from Garfield.
Wow.
And then Magna built the whole company housing subdivision at Magna, and they just used a lot of the old houses that they moved over there. When I was a kid, Magna was a much more bustling little town than it is now. I mean, after all, there were over 20,000 people working in the mine and mill and smelter. These days, not so much going on in Magna. It has attempted to make something of a resurgence. You can still see something of its former life exhibited here on Main Street, but it's a pretty quiet little town. Well, let's go over to Grandma's house.
Grandma's house.
Yeah, that's Magna. And Magna's, it's interesting. It's kind of a cool little town.
That's cool.
But let's go check out Grandma's house. This is where we used to go as kids for the family reunion and Christmas at Grandma's house. And, you know, over the river and through the woods. In this case, it's kind of over the tailings pond and through the smelter. But nevertheless, let's go over to Grandma's house.
There we go.
So Grandma and her 5 kids all lived in this little house back in the day. Again, it was built in Garfield, and then Kennecott moved it into this new little subdivision in their little company town of Magna. This was my sitting spot out on the curb. So let's go see if we can find the railroad. Actually, we know full well that we can because we were out here a couple of days ago exploring it. So let's head on over and we will show you the old grade, still there, not in use.
Right.
The railroad is still used rather extensively around the smelter. Back some years ago, they put scrubbers on the stack out here, and it produces this stuff in these tank cars, sulfuric acid. And that's become a major cash product for the mine now. Back in the early days, everything here moved by rail, or was even removed from the pit by rail. And then the ore was taken to the mill, the concentrator, and the smelter, all by rail. And the finished product was all shipped by rail as well. In the 40s, they started using these massive articulated Mallee-style engines because they just had so much stuff to move around. This was the biggest mine in the world at that time, and it still, for the most part, is. In the late 1950s and the 1960s, they replaced all of the big steam locomotives with electric locomotives. This required rigging trolley wire and catenary and all kinds of systems to get power to the trains. Then in the 1970s, all of that was replaced by diesel locomotives, And then in the 1990s, everything was replaced by trucks in the mine, and a giant conveyor belt took the place of the main line. But as you can see, the main line is still here and quite serviceable. It doesn't look like it would take any service at all to drive a train clear down to the other end, even though they never actually do that anymore. We're going to take you guys over now to the Copperton Yard, which is in the bustling metropolis of Copperton.
Copperton.
And Copperton is really cool. It's one of the very few towns that has survived completely intact. And the most interesting thing about it is it's perfect.
Really?
It's perfect. It's just exactly like the day it was built back in the 1920s, because a group of like-minded people have all moved in there and restored all of the houses, and it's like going into a Buckwell painting. So check this out, the yard, the abandoned yard, but mostly the beautiful town of Copperton.
Wow.
Copperton is really a beautiful little town. It was well known in its day for the roofs. These look like tile roofs, but they're actually stamped out of heavy copper sheeting. 100% copper roofs were put on all of the homes. Here and there you will still find some of the original copper roofs here in Copperton. Copper was used as a decorative metal throughout the community because, after all, the world's largest copper mine is right here. This was the road to Bingham Canyon, and as you can see, it goes nowhere now. It just vanishes under the hill. This was the southern end of the main line, and from here, the trains went up into the pit. This was the entrance to the switching yard here at Copperton. Thousands of men a day went through this security gate to their jobs. The yard is now completely unused. No one works here. There was a time when everything required manpower to get it done, and when everything was shipped by rail, it took a lot of people to staff this switching yard and run all of these trains. The mine is producing more copper and other minerals than it ever has. But because everything's been replaced and automated, well, it just doesn't require that many people to work here anymore. Here at the far end of the yard, the tracks have been ripped out. Back in the day, these tracks entered the mine here through a series of tunnels. Here is one of those tunnels, and as you can see, no trains travel through it anymore. Nowadays, there is just a giant conveyor belt coming out from the pit. Inside the pit itself is a giant vertical mill, and the ore is milled right inside the mine, all through automation, and then the milled ore exits the mine here on this conveyor belt. This is the main motor station for the conveyor system, and this conveyor belt carries the milled ore over to the new concentrator built here at Copperton. The concentrate then moves through a pipe all the way back to Magna and the smelter. Well, there you have it. So there's quite a bit of stuff still there. An entire town, which is really neat. And it looks like driving into a movie set or something.
Oh, it's wonderful.
In fact, it's being used as a TV set. So
yeah.
Why not?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
absolutely.
so beautiful. It's just perfect for that. Yeah. And that's just cool to see that the railroad has survived even though they're not using it. And this beautifully preserved little town in the middle of this huge mine.
Gosh.
Just amazing. Just absolutely amazing. Well, if you haven't been over to the website, you might want to pop over to the website. That's kind of a fun place, toymantelevision.com. And of course, the number one place to hang out is the channel here on YouTube. Toyman Television channel here on YouTube, where we're now coming up on 170. We're
Really-
ways
really,
away.
really close.
We're ways away from 170,
Yeah.
but we'll be there
We'll
pretty
be there.
darn soon. And that's a lot of little shows for you
Exactly.
to watch. And there
Right.
should be something there for just about everybody. So watch that. And while you're there, you do want to subscribe. And the easy way to get to the channel and to subscribe is to click on the blue button. You ready for it? Zoink! Right here, blue button that says subscribe. And that will take you to the channel, and it will make you a subscriber, and it will make you cool.
That's right.
So click on the blue button.
Absolutely.
Well, we're not sure how you found this movie on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring. And we will see you here again in 1 week with some more massive and significant screwing around. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.